We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay, Patterson, Mike Santagata. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Stressed because I actually made my fantasy championship game. So now I'll be on the pod. I can't make the decision or not. Brees Hall is just going to play for me. And hopefully that is a good thing. But I will also say I emotionally hedged and I put like $2 on because my opponent has David Njoku for tonight's game. The Brees Hall under and the David Njoku anytime touchdown. So that was like plus 400 odds. So we're rolling with that. Either way, I hope I have a win. There is a possibility that I lose on both of these, but we're trying.
I'm I'm the same way when I want my team to win, or because if I do any sports betting, it's like $1, $2. I don't do
Yeah,
anything too
same.
crazy. Maybe like $4 every Sunday or something like that. That's about as high I'm gonna go. And I will. This is so sad, but I will go. I want my team to win so badly that for the other team, I will guess everything possible that could happen for them in a positive way for the other team because I'm like, I'm gonna jinx them in some way. I don't know why. I think that's gonna happen. I end up taking an L in two areas, so I don't recommend that for sports fans. Just just don't emotionally bet. And
It's just emotional hedging.
you're
It's
right.
it's just in case.
You're right. I understand. Well, good luck to you. I actually hope the
Thank you.
Jets pull off an upset, and I hope the Cincinnati Bengals are able to beat the Cleveland Browns next week. And I think it would just be the funniest thing in the world if they could just take 2 L's in back-to-back weeks, even though nobody's picking the Jets to beat the Browns tonight as we're recording this, but we will see what happens for that Thursday night football game. Moving along, huge game. It's sad because I think a lot of people, when the schedule came out in May, you thought this game could be for the number 1 seed for the playoffs, and the Cincinnati Bengals, the Kansas City Chiefs, both are out of contention for the number 1 seed, and it's absolutely heartbreaking when I think about this matchup. We've talked about it plenty. Season felt over when Joe Burrow went down, but the club is still in it. If they win this week, they win next week, they have like a 94% chance of making the playoffs, which I think a lot of Bengals fans would take that after Joe went down for the possibility of playing in January. We'll see what happens there. But we'll start with this matchup. Some good news for the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Cam Taylor-Britt, he feels 99.9% sure he's playing. I would even say 100% with his confidence in the locker room. He's back at practice. He's full go and back-to-back days. Jamar Chase didn't practice on Wednesday, but he was limited today. Listening to his locker room comments, which I absolutely love because it brings back the Chad Johnson vibes, the confidence. We need more of that in the NFL. And he isn't afraid to do it. He even mentioned that the Kansas City Chiefs don't have a superstar on defense, and one-on-one, they won't be able to cover him. And I kind of agree with that point. I love it. I love everything about it. But just hearing him talk makes me feel like Jamar Chase is probably going to go on Sunday. And I think that would be a huge advantage for this offense. Obviously, Tee Higgins been able to step up in the production side the last 2 weeks, but to have Jamar Chase out there would just be great offensively. And in the wide receiver room, your best players on the field when Joe Burrow is out. What are your takeaways? What are you looking for in this game right now with this matchup? What's so crazy about it? If the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Kansas City Chiefs, they'll have the same record.
Yes, that is true. And the Chiefs have the AFC West since I guess the Broncos are just done.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Raiders can't do it. I don't think.
no, I think they're in too big of a hole. Otherwise, that'd be fun. Antonio Pierce took over too late. They should have just fired McDaniels week 2, and then let's see if Pierce would have had it going that good then. Um, well, I think Jamar's going to play because I would hope he's not firing up the other team just to go sit down and like let Tee Higgins and all the other guys take the brunt of that. Like, I don't know what you want.
Like,
um,
sorry guys, I'm not playing. Good luck.
yeah, it'd be the equivalent of like my friend can beat you up type of situation. So I think he plays. Like I don't think he'd talk and do all that if he wasn't playing, and just a confidence thing and whatever else gets him going, gets them going. I'm sure they'll use it as bulletin board material. They seem to use a lot of Bengal stuff as bulletin board material, and I'm sure that this hypes and gets Jamar Chase more ready for the matchup to go show what he's got. You hope it doesn't go like the Browns game though, where post game you have to talk about how you lost to some elves. So I'm looking forward to that. aforementioned fantasy thing. I do have Tee Higgins, so hopefully that catch a touchdown or something. So I'm looking at that a lot. But I think it's interesting. We could start Bengals offense versus Chiefs defense. What do the Chiefs do? Because the Chiefs have been very multiple and different on the back end and to try to confuse other quarterbacks. But then when Brian Flores kind of did that, the Bengals passing offense eventually ate it up and they were fine. With looking at the Chiefs and then looking at what the Steelers did, I mean, the Steelers, to me, very simple defense. They mixed it up and how they got there sometimes, but it was so much like cover 3, load the box, and dare Jake Browning to throw. He couldn't throw against it, so then you're just screwed. If I'm the Chiefs, I think I would at least start with that game plan and work from there. I kind of expect Spags to be a little bit more aggressive than he would be against Burrow. You could think back to the first Chiefs-Bengals matchup of this rivalry in 2021, the regular season. The game turned on that 3rd and long where Burrow beat the zero pressure by throwing it up to Jamar Chase and converting that for a first down. But that is who Spags usually is, sending that pressure on 3rd and long and just living in a, this is going to get home before you can take advantage of it world. He has better coverage players now than he did back then. And he's facing a quarterback that hasn't killed him on that same pressure look. So I'm expecting some high leverage situations that the Chiefs are going to send some pressure at him. And other than that, if I was the Chiefs, I'd be playing a lot of spot drop 3 and loading the box. We'll see. And maybe the Bengals are going to make their adjustments for it and whatever else. But any defense could run that. And the Steelers have buried Browning with it twice now.
Yeah, I definitely think Chris Jones will get home a couple times. It's just.
Do you think they'll line up Chris Jones against Orlando Brown at all in this game?
Maybe for the vibes.
I know that's why I think it might happen. I don't think it's like a smart move or anything, but I feel like they want to get one on him.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that's where it's just the pressure from me and how the offensive line played last week. I haven't been down on the offensive line much this season, and it just was really disappointing to see that on the road against an AFC North team. And look, I know the D line for the Steelers is legit, but at the same time, it's just you don't want to see that out of your offensive line and the protection for Jake Browning. I don't know what we're going to see. The thing about the Kansas City Chiefs, we'll get to their offense in just a moment, but defensively, I still think they have a lot of young studs out there, and it's still going to be an interesting matchup. Even if you have a healthy Jamar Chase, and I wouldn't say fully healthy Jamar Chase, everybody's kind of playing hurt at this moment. But Jamar Chase out there and Tee Higgins, maybe you can get a run game going. I really want to see what this matchup is going to look like defensively. And obviously a defensive coordinator on the other side who's very familiar with the Cincinnati Bengals offense, just a different quarterback on the other side of these matchups. So other than that, do you have any confidence in the run game for the Bengals?
No.
Okay, fair.
It shouldn't be as bad, would be my take. I feel like you're going to be fighting between it probably being not good, but, not terrible, and then also maybe being at like a healthy average. That would be what I'd shoot for, is to get like some type of average run game going, and maybe you can get an explosive out of Chase Brown in the run game. I will say, in their base defense, the Chiefs line up more like the Colts and Jags do than they do the Steelers or the Vikings. So, 4 down fronts, get off the ball type of thing. And the Bengals have shown they can take advantage of that. They've developed some run game plans that have done really well on that. Now, I didn't like the Bengals run game plan when I went back and watched as much as I did the first time the Bengals and Steelers played. And I think some of that kind of crept into their heads. It was similarly unsuccessful when the game was at all close. And then when you're down 24 points, you're down 24 points. So they're going to throw the ball, and runs don't really matter in that situation. But in the first half, it was a lot of kind of just throwing things at the wall. So it kind of felt like they lost what they normally try to do, or any type of situation where they're going to work angles and stuff that makes a lot of sense to me on how you would attack a certain front. It just felt like they couldn't figure out how to attack the Steelers, and the Steelers would always have a free hitter at the second level because they're loading the box, and the Bengals were never able to take advantage of that. Throwing the ball, I think, was the crux of the issue. Can the Chiefs replicate that? It wouldn't be the exact same just because I don't see them playing odd fronts very often and playing slow. I think they're going to still play fast. I think they're going to play their 4-down even fronts and try to stop the run that way. But unlike how we normally think of teams trying to stop the Bengals, especially the Chiefs, where you're going to play 4-down light boxes, try to stop the run with a light box and still devote all your resources to the pass game. I think the Chiefs are going to try to stop the run game because that is how if the Bengals were some type of, I don't know, that's how you kind of like starve out the Bengals offense. If the run game's dead, then you have to rely on Browning drop back pass game. And that has been spotty in those situations where it's coming.
And if Joe Burrow was out there, I would have a lot more confidence.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, last week, if Joe Burrow was out there seeing the fronts and defenses that the Steelers were playing, I mean, it would have been a 400-yard day, but instead we didn't get that.
That's the thing. I feel like when you think of all the AFC North matchups, Joe Burrow has had a lot of success over the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's really just disappointing in those two matchups to go 0-2 and get swept this year to two teams who, they'll pretty much probably lay an egg to Pittsburgh Steelers for the next 2 weeks. We'll flip over to the defensive side of the ball. As I mentioned before, you're getting Cam Taylor-Britt out there. Defensively, it's been pretty disappointing and depressing when it comes to these explosive plays. I do obviously think Cam Taylor-Britt's going to make a difference. It is his first game back after an injury, so we'll see what that looks like. He's very familiar with the Kansas City Chiefs in those two matchups last year, so this won't be new for him and playing in Arrowhead. But defensively, what are you expecting out of this defense to an offense in Patrick Mahomes, who has had receivers let him down? The rookie wide receivers, the only guy that's really been stepping up. And then Travis Kelce feels like he's aging a little bit. But the thing is, the Cincinnati Bengals cannot cover a tight end. So it feels like this is going to be a game where Travis Kelce might eat. But also, Lou Anarumo, very familiar with these guys. So what do you think the matchup's going to look like defensively?
I wonder if the Chiefs try to go back to the well of what worked last year, which in that championship game was Marquez Valdes-Scantling against Mike Hilton. Do they try to get that? Because they put them in the slot and they're in 11 personnel, some type of light personnel package. Bengals are probably matching that with their nickel, and then you're going to get that matchup. Or do the Bengals respond and move Mike Hilton to safety a little bit like they've done and maybe try to let Dax Hill take that role? I don't know. I'm interested to see how that goes. I think it's weird talking so much about how important the run games are for these two teams with their quarterback. Well, the quarterback play that has been there the past 2 years. But for the Chiefs, I mean, you have to try to make it a little hard on them too, because I see the Chiefs interior as a hefty advantage over the Bengals interior defensive line, their interior offensive line. If they could just take advantage of that and just run the ball the entire game, then that's it. I mean, there's nothing you can do. And unless the Bengals offense is high flying or able to sustain drives, then that's going to be the end of the game for the most part. So they have to show a way to stop the run, which they didn't do a great job of in the Pittsburgh game without DJ Reader too. That's the really tough part. I thought it was interesting. A few things when I went back and watched the defense. One was they did kind of just roll Tupou out there in Reader spot when they tried to go odd front, but then they went to a 4-3, which they haven't done very often. And they tried to play that way, bring in Akeem Davis-Gaither instead of forcing 3 interior defensive linemen. And I thought that worked better. I thought Gaither played it all right in that game. And then the other thing, which is just a passing downs thing, but they finally did it. They put Hubbard inside with Murphy on the outside and Hendrickson on the outside. I thought that was cool. It didn't have like great effect or anything. There was one play Murphy got a pressure on it, but other than that, not really much going on there. But it was cool to see because I've been wondering why they weren't trying to get to that at all. So the only other part I'd mention is I wonder how much man they'll play. Like, do you just go to something where you've got a double team on Kelce? And then, I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of talk about how bad the Chiefs receivers have been, right? So just man them up and trust your guys to stay in front of them, or I don't know. We'll see. So there's a lot of interesting things, I think, on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and one of the things I don't even look too much into injuries these days for other teams because I remember what happened when they played the Texans and pretty much half the roster wasn't available and they were able to produce and win the game. So I don't even look at it like that. But it is worth noting if the Kansas City Chiefs plan on running the ball, Pacheco looks to be out.
Yeah.
As of now, as we're recording this on a Thursday, he hasn't cleared concussion protocol, so I would be really surprised if he is cleared by Friday. Kadarius Toney, I don't know how much of a loss that is for a guy
Yeah,
that
that's
Patrick
the
Mahomes, he doesn't even look at him anymore when he's out there, to be honest. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Clyde Edwards is one that look, this could be his game. Somebody who has been kind of like a letdown for the running game for the Kansas City Chiefs could end up running the ball on this defense who's really having a hard time stopping the run. So we'll see what that looks like for them offensively. But yeah, I think Pacheco is the guy, even looking at this matchup a few weeks ago, thinking that's the guy who terrifies me. He's a really fun running back and a guy who unfortunately is in concussion protocol for them. So we'll see what that looks like for their run game, but definitely something to keep an eye on. I know a lot of people are like, you don't want to face a mad Kansas City Chiefs team or anything like that. I heard the same thing with the 49ers. The Cincinnati Bengals, this is their season right now. You lose this game, it's going to be really hard to get into the postseason. And with 9 wins, are you going to be able to do that when you look at the other AFC teams? I think it's like a 7-way tie for that final wild card spot. So this is it. And, I don't look too much into they're going to be mad if Jamar Chase says this bulletin board material or anything like that. The Cincinnati Bengals should be mad. They lost the AFC Championship game to this team. I know there are a few more rookies on this team and younger guys, but you shouldn't need help getting up for a game like this. And it's a huge one for them and one that I still feel like they can compete with even without Joe Burrow out there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I also believe Jared McKinnon's on IR, and Clyde has actually missed the last 2 practices with an illness.
Yeah, he is sick.
I have no idea what the next running back would be if all those guys are out.
Watch him be like this all-star off the practice squad or something.
Yeah, he'll probably just run for 200 yards or something. I actually I don't think Clyde's that good, but I have
No.
the worry. I have a little bit of worry that he's going to have a pretty good day, and I am not going to hear I'm not going to hear the end of it from Bengals fans who
Mhm.
have been clamoring for him with the idea of making 2019 LSU. I think he's fine. I don't know. He's kind of like a slower pass catcher that doesn't really pass protect that well. We'll see. I don't know. I think that helps if Pacheco's out and it's Clyde instead. That's going to help, probably not give up as many explosive plays just on the athleticism front of that. So at least hopefully not. But the run game for the Chiefs could still be very sustained and efficient. So I think that is a possibility no matter who is back there. If the Chiefs offensive line is just blowing them off the ball, then that's a wrap. Any NFL running back could, run behind that. So I also noticed when I looked at the injury report real quick was L'Jarius Sneed,
Yeah,
DNPs the past 2 days.
that
That's a
would be
big one.
and that's injury too. So that's not somebody who's just getting
Yeah,
some
his
time off
calf.
or anything at all. So that is definitely as somebody who has researched calf injuries since July 27th can tell you it can be a lot of different grades. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. How many, what is it going to be? Yeah, for that would be a huge loss for their defense. As Jamar Chase said, I mean, he praised him. On the defense side of the ball. And he didn't have a lot of praising in the locker room today, but that was the guy he pointed out. So that is definitely something to watch when you look at their injury report. I know he just said, injuries, I don't look at them too much because other teams have still had success against this defense. So we'll see what it looks like. But those are still major names that could be out for the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, we'll see what it looks like. We'll get to our predictions in a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and get to some of those Twitter questions. And remember to follow along Bengals_Sands. You can follow me at Ellen Diaz Patterson. All right, let's go ahead and get to some of the mailbags. It's a light version because we had so much to talk about when it comes to this Kansas City Chiefs matchup. It's a little bit different than a few months ago, what it would look like, but it's still playing for something for the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll go to the first one. Should the Bengals use the franchise tag on Tee Higgins? I know you are a pay Tee Higgins guy.
Yes, and also yes. Like even though I'm a paid Tee Higgins guy, I feel like the most likely outcome here is a franchise tag and run it back. I don't think they're going to tag and trade. I don't think they're going to let him walk for nothing this year. And we kind of just kick this can down the road. But should they? I also think, yeah. I think some people have come up with like the Jonah tag idea, and I just think that's, I don't know. I'm always going to default to the better player, and I think T is the better player between those two, especially when Jamar Chase is out. On the last 5 games, really stepped up. Averages like 110 yards, and just really steps up as the guy when he needs to. So I have a lot of respect for Tee Higgins, and I think he's a great player. I would use the tag on him because I don't think a long-term deal is going to be done this offseason. I don't think it's going to be done in general, but I think we franchise tag and kick this down the road. I don't know. Do you agree? Do you have the Jonah Galaxy Brain idea here, or maybe a Reader thought?
So I think that they're going to find a way to do a 1-year deal with Reader. He'll start the season on the short-term IR, but he'll still come back for 1 year. And that doesn't mean you need to get his replacement in the draft or free agency. But I still feel like they find a way to get him back for 1 year, and then he plays for his maybe 3 to 4 year contract somewhere else. I think for Jonah Williams, I like the consistency. You see it right tackle, but at the same time, if you can't compete in the AFC North against TJ Watt 2 times a year, that's still very concerning for me in this team right now. When I look at some of the bigger guys that you're going to face in your own division, and I just don't have the confidence for Jonah Williams there to use the franchise tag. I think you should franchise Tee Higgins, and I could see franchise tag him this year. This might be it. Or you franchise him the following year and you trade him. Maybe he goes off. Maybe he goes absolutely off, and you are in a great position because you can franchise again and then trade him. I want Tee Higgins to get his bag. I'm always for players getting their contract, and Tee Higgins will get his bag. I just don't think it's in Cincinnati. I will be shocked if the Cincinnati Bengals ever do a contract extension with this agent. To be completely honest with you, I don't think that they will even draft players who he represents down the road, or they'll at least just play their rookie contract. I just don't see it happening, and I hope Tee Higgins is on this roster in 2024. So I would say yes, franchise tag in 2024. A lot of people can look at it different ways and do the franchise tag and trade, but I will stay with franchise tag.
Yeah. Okay. Then we're pretty much in agreement there.
Yep. Next question over in the mailbag. Oh, goodness. This is a great question. It's very concerning right now. Is the defensive line the biggest need in the draft?
Reader depending. It might be either way. The interior. They have edge guys that I feel fine with for both. Obviously, I don't know. I'm a big Murphy guy, so I'm a believer in his talent as the third edge. I think Cam Sample's a fine rotational piece, and even Joseph Osai does have juice. I mean, I picked him as my breakout player. That's obviously not happening. And also a Mulgeta guy. So we just brought that up. So I don't think that deal's getting long-term deal getting done
Joseph
there.
Osai while you can.
Yeah, but even though he's been kind of relegated to bench role now, I still think, I mean, that's, I don't know if other teams have a fifth edge that, with that much talent. So I think the edge room, I wouldn't bother with trying to make any moves right now. I could see it, I guess, if, that is clearly BPA, et cetera, and you just kind of draft that guy. That probably kicks Cam Sample back in the rotation, and you're going to probably move on from both Hendricks and Hubbard within another year or two in that scenario. You're probably moving on from one of them soon anyway, so Murphy has a spot.
Hubbard.
I think so too, although he does have that lifer feel to him sometimes.
He does. He does. I feel like you've got to, that I told you before the season started, getting that extension, that additional year on to Trey Hendrickson feels like a steal right now.
And he's playing some of his best ball. So the interior of this defensive line, it's a huge need. And it's been a need since Ogunjobi left. And they were able to make it work last year, piecing some stuff together. But, you get Josh Tupou taking a downturn. Zach Carr doesn't take a step forward like maybe some people were expecting. And now you're left with a team that likes to play a 3-4 front, 5-2 front, 3 interior defensive linemen, I don't care what you're calling it, as their base front. And they have one guy that is like starting level player in BJ Hill. considering Reader is not signed for next year. If Reader signs, great. It's still a need. Like that's how bad it is right now, is that even with Reader, this is still a need for next year and going forward. So I think it's up there. I don't know how much talent there is in this draft. I know like 3 players, and 2 of them play for Texas. So
you're gonna watch him this weekend.
I will. I like the one I watched him. Tavondre Sweat. I remember I watched him last year because I was watching some of the other guys like Coburn and whatever else. And I was like, who's this guy? And I remember Googling him and seeing, it's like, oh, okay, a junior. Is he coming out? Not coming out. But he was my favorite of the group. So I think he's, at least when I watched, he was the best member of that D-line. And I hear a lot about another guy that they have now. And then the other one being Newton from Illinois, also a big name, first round prospect. So there's some guys out there. If you lose Reader, I feel like you have to go find some type of adequate level nose tackle or whatever else out there and have at least some plug and play ability. So that way you're not relying so much on a draft pick falling to you. Because I think the idea of the draft should be to have your serious holes plugged with at least like low-end starters. That's kind of what they tried to do this past year and to mix success. But that's the goal. And they would, I think, in my opinion, need 2 defensive tackles for that. They keep carrying 4 interior defensive linemen on game day, and they play 3 of those guys in their base front. Like, we need 5. Come on. What are we doing?
I agree. I think they're going to have to add somebody in free agency. For some reason, I just feel like Chris Jones is going to be a Cincinnati Bengal.
Jeez. That's going to be so expensive.
I know.
Man, it is. I don't know. I think it's funny sometimes with like the people that get brought up as future Bengals, and then like now we can't afford to pay Tee Higgins. Like we're paying Chase and paying Burrow.
But let me ask you this.
I'd rather pay Chris Jones, I guess, than Tee Higgins. I think he's a better player.
Exactly. And that is nothing against
Tee Higgins. I don't know how old is Chris Jones now.
And I'm not trying to make this about not paying Tee Higgins because I love Tee Higgins. And if this front office pays him, I will be so excited. Tee has been one of my favorite draft picks. It feels like a steal that he was available in the second round in the second round in 2020. So I will always pay Tee Higgins. That would be amazing. But I'm just saying, if a guy like Chris Jones is available and you're thinking, where do I put that money? And you would probably be paying less than your wide receiver money, just a little bit less.
Yeah. Sure.
I'm just saying. I could see it all happening. How crazy that would be. But we'll see. We'll talk off season later because right now we obviously still have a game coming up. One more Twitter question. Can the Bengals win out?
Sure. I always like the can questions. It's like, yeah, they can.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can't wait to get my prediction because I'm going to be feeling that same optimistic way. But I'll get to that in just a moment. When it comes to the Bengals winning out, I will say this. Jay Morrison, friend of the show, he had said on his podcast and over on Pro Football Network that Bengals fans should be rooting for the Browns to win tonight. I can't get on that level because I do not like Cleveland.
I also can't get on that level for fantasy reasons.
Yeah, well, we can't for Mike's fantasy reasons, and I just can't. I don't like Cleveland. I don't. But he said, here's the thing: if the Cincinnati Bengals win on Sunday, or if Cleveland wins tonight, and the Cincinnati Bengals win on Sunday, and it's in a situation where Cleveland cannot move out of the 5th seed, or just get further, which they more than likely wouldn't get further down because they would already have 11 wins, that there could be a chance that they rest some of their people, Myles Garrett, some of their big stars, in that final game, and a game where the Cincinnati Bengals more than likely need to win out. That could benefit the Cincinnati Bengals because they're more than likely going to secure a playoff spot, if we're being honest. So there's one way to look at that game for the Cleveland Browns, and that would be huge because I do think the Cincinnati Bengals, Myles Garrett still terrifies me. And if he's just resting that final game, I'm all for that. I think that is a great decision. And some of their other stars. And I think that the Bengals are obviously going to be playing all their starters. So we'll see what that looks like. So yeah, I'm definitely in a situation where they beat Kansas City at Kansas City's best. I know the huge difference is DJ Reader's not there. Joe Burrow isn't there. Joe Burrow is 3-1 against them. I know people hate quarterback wins and stats and all of that stuff, but it's still a huge difference when Joe Burrow's on the field, what they've been able to do in those matchups. I know it's different, but I still have the confidence going into this game and coming home to Cleveland. To be determined on when that game is. It could be a primetime game in Cincinnati.
Yeah. To me, I don't think I care. But if you're going to make the playoffs, you can't be scared of playing the Browns at full strength.
You're right. You're right. Because you're going to have to see them.
You're going to have to possibly see them. You're going to see more difficult opponents than them. Maybe not teams that match up as well as them because they just seem to match up really well with the Bengals. But you got to slay that dragon at some point, right? Like go beat them. Go beat them at full strength. Well, that would fit because I think Brandon Allen did it. I think Brandon Allen did it in the year Burrow was hurt. Yeah, it was the last game of the year, and Mixon had a big day.
You're right. You're right.
So the backup quarterback has had some success in this situation.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. Mike and I both agree the Bengals can win out.
Yeah, the likelihood we probably disagree on, but the possibility for sure.
Yeah. Well, we said that. So we need to get to predictions. We'll get to those in just a moment on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. The over-under 44. Mm-hmm. The Cincinnati Bengals 3-1 against the Kansas City Chiefs in the Joe Burrow era. Joe Burrow is not playing, so Joe Burrow will still stay at 3-1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. This matchup, obviously Kansas City, they play better on the road, which is so funny because a lot of people are like, oh, Patrick Mahomes might have to play on the road this year, and they actually have a better record or at least been playing well on the road. They're going to be playing at home. Coming off a pretty embarrassing loss on Christmas Day, a lot of people leaving the stands, and even a quarterback for the Raiders who couldn't get anything going in 3 quarters, and they still couldn't find a way to beat the Raiders. The Cincinnati Bengals are coming to town with a huge matchup and a game that they need if they want to play in the postseason. Do you want to give your prediction first?
Sure. It's a tough game. It's a game I think we're past the point of just expecting like, this Chiefs offense will wake up. This Chiefs offense will wake up. We're at the point of like, I'd be surprised if the Chiefs offense woke up. But I think to give them any credit is the Bengals have been terrible against tight ends. Travis Kelce does have the tight end next to his name on the depth chart. So if that gets going, then I could see some trouble for this Bengals defense. Now, I think the Bengals defense can be very keyed in on him. I don't know how much it's going to matter because sometimes they're keyed in on TJ Hawkinson too, and Hawkinson had a fine day against them. So we'll see. The only thing is the Chiefs don't really have anybody outside of Kelce that really scares you as a defense, unless I guess Marquez Valdes-Scantling finds that magic that he had in the AFC Championship game. I mean, you're looking
PTSD.
Yeah, but like, are you really nervous about a lot of those guys? I mean, Rashee Rice has been a pretty good rookie. I don't think he's somebody that, you're going to divert attention away from Kelce to look at. And I think Kelce's also lost a step this year. So we'll see on that front. But I do think that is one way it gets going. The other way it gets going is just they blast them in the run game, and there's just no answer there without Reader. On the other side, I have lost confidence in the Bengals offense. Last week did it. I was pretty confident after that Flores week, and then I got like that game day, the Pittsburgh game day. I thought like, man, I don't know if Browning's gonna have a good day. And I think I mentioned that on the pod too. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be a good day for Browning against Pittsburgh, but I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting just like conservative. I guess I shouldn't have expected conservative Browning. He is a balls to the wall type quarterback, but I was expecting something like that, a pick, a touchdown, 250 yards, the Bengals score 17 and win 17-14 or something like that. I think that was about my prediction. Now I'm just like, man, I think it's going to give KC short fields, or can Browning protect the ball in this scenario? I think every pick was terrible.
Every one of them.
Yeah, like none of them were like, that was just – yeah, none of those picks were like, oh, that was unfortunate. Like the closest you have is the one he tried to throw the ball away. It's like, well, I'm still blaming the quarterback for not throwing the ball out of bounds in that scenario.
Yeah. And they scored points off of it.
They sure did. they threw a pick on first down, and then it's just gone from there. Two of them happened on a Y cross concept, which is something I thought he should be fine with. This was the first time I think that they ran it with him, and I think that is probably going to the trash can. For whatever reason, he's not reading that out. Anyway, I have my concerns. I think I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game.
Go ahead.
23-17. Just not a super exciting game. I don't know. The Chiefs are much healthier, at least like their stars. Like the Bengals' top 3 players could be out for this game, or at least 3 of their top 4 or so, with Reeder, Burrow, and Chase. I think Chase plays. That might give him the boost that I'm not talking about here. Maybe it goes 23-20 or something, or maybe the Bengals can pull it out. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. But when I'm looking at what the Chiefs could do on offense versus what the Bengals – versus my feelings on how the Bengals offense should look against this team, I feel like the Chiefs have the advantage.
That's fine. That is totally fine to feel that way. And there are so many times that I think about this game, and I will honestly be surprised if the Bengals win. But at the same time, I'm playing with house money. I think that the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't know how great it will look offensively, and I don't think they will be able to get the run game going. I hope that Jake Browning has a bounce back game. I do think backup quarterbacks can get figured out pretty quickly in the NFL, even though it did take about 3 weeks or 4 weeks, honestly. But I still think he is a legit backup, and he'll be back in Cincinnati next year, and that is good news for Joe Burrow in the quarterback room too. For me, I think Cam Taylor-Britt coming back, and yes, Jamar Chase won't be 100% to be determined on what that looks like. I still feel like it's going to be more of a Tee Higgins game, and Yoshi's going to be involved, which is extremely important for the future of that. Hopefully Brad Robbins has a good game, and they can help with the field position like he did, and well, not even help because they got demolished against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that was one of his better games in his rookie year, and I hope that that's a factor. But I will say this, there is something about the number 23-20 in these matchups over the last 3. The over-under is 44. I'm going under. I'm going 23-20. Cincinnati Bengals. Evan McPherson hits the game winner because it's tied late, just like old times. And the Cincinnati Bengals find a way to win. And I don't think it's going to be beautiful or anything like that. It's kind of wild that what this game is after, as I mentioned before, when the schedule came out, what we thought it was going to be. And it's very depressing thinking about that, to be completely honest with you, because it was going to be exciting. New Year's Eve, you go back to last year's game against the Buffalo Bills on January 2nd, and it unfortunately didn't happen. And there was really high expectations for that game and playoff position. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to win this game and you have to beat the Cleveland Browns. So yeah, why not? House money. I like Jamar's confidence. I know what happened week 1 against the Browns when he said what he said about the Elves. But it's time. It's the playoffs. It's postseason. And I still believe in Lou. I believe in Lou in this defense to do enough, even though DJ Reeder will not be on the field and Joe Burrow isn't on the other side.
We'll say the last thing is just because I did find it. I talked a lot about how the Steelers played a lot of spot drop 3 against the Bengals, and it worked really well. The Chiefs, very low in the cover 3 percentage. The league average is above 30%, and they're below 20%. So it would take a little bit of like a philosophical change for them to just kind of go like, we're not going to do what we do. We're going to do this because it worked. So they might not do that. And maybe that helps the Bengals. Maybe Spags just tries to play what he normally plays and mix things up and throw them at Cincinnati, and they're able to handle it like they did against the Vikings. So there's a path here. I think you could talk yourself into that. This team is, the Chiefs defense is built more like some of those good defenses they played before Pittsburgh rather than Pittsburgh, which were the 2 games surrounding that sandwich.
Yeah, huge game for the Cincinnati Bengals. They hit the road playing on a Sunday after back-to-back Saturday games, and it should be a good one. 4:25 kickoff with Tony Romo, Jim Nantz. They have a pretty good record when they're on the call, so we'll see what happens. Make sure you follow Mike. Go check out all of his work over on All Bengals. You can follow him on Twitter, Bengals_Sands. You can follow me at Alan Diaz Patterson. But thank you for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati, and have a happy New Year.